Hey, how's it going? This is Justin with Lesser Dog Tutorials, and this is part 7 in the Retro FPS tutorial series for Unreal Engine 5. Now, this is the second part of the health and armor section, so we will be finalizing a few things, like, for instance, the UI to show us how much health and armor we have, and then also pickups that will give us armor and give us health. So, let's get started. All right, so I've already imported the Upheaval font, and there is a link to this font in the description. And that will look like this. And the download button is over here on the right side. And then I just hit yes on the pop-up when it is imported. And then in the textures, I made a new UI folder, and I just imported the damage icons, which will be provided in the description. And then I right-click this and I went to Sprite Actions, Apply Paper 2D Texture Settings. Now I want to extract the sprites. And instead of auto, I'm going to do a grid. And for the size, I'm going to do 32 by 32. If you hit Enter, you'll see it's divided in the middle, and that's what we want. So now that those are extracted, what we're going to do is go to our HUD widget and open that up. So the first thing I want to do in here is this image 96 is actually our crosshair, so I'm going to name it crosshair. And then I'm actually going to change the opacity here in the color and opacity section. I'm going to change that down to maybe 0.25. And that way it's a little bit hidden, but you can still see it. Next, what I'll do is I'll add a vertical box. So I'm going to do a little search up here for a vertical box. And I'm going to just drag that over top the overlay so that it becomes added to the bottom of the list. And then for this, I'm going to keep the vertical, or I'm going to keep the horizontal alignment to the left. But for vertical, I'm going to go to the bottom, so it's in the bottom corner. And then for padding on the left, I'll add 20. And for the bottom, I'll add 20 also. And that way, it's pulled a little bit away from the edge. Next, I'm going to search for a horizontal box and put that in the vertical box. So now we have a horizontal box within the vertical box, and the horizontal box is going to hold the image of the icon, so either the health or the armor, and then also text to say how much of the specific stat we have. So for the image, I'll just add the health. Oh, actually, you know what? I'll do the armor icon, and I'm going to change the size of it to be 64 by 64, so it's a little bit bigger in the screen. And then I'm also going to set the alignment to not be stretch or fill. I'm going to do center for both. And then I'm going to rename this to be armor icon, and it does not need to be a variable. It's not going to change. And then for the text, I'm going to rename the text to be armor value, and that will be a variable. That will change. And then for the text, I'm just going to say, instead of text block, I'll say 0. And then for the text itself, I want the font to be the new font we imported, Upheaval. And the size I'm going to say is 60. Very big. And then to separate it a little bit from the icon, I'm just going to add 10 padding on the left. Now with that done, I can take this horizontal box and I can do Control W to duplicate it. And so now the top one will be armor and the bottom one is going to be changed to health. So I'll just rename this health icon. I'll change the image to be the health. I'll change the size to be 64 by 64. And then for the armor value, I'm going to rename that to be health value. And the text will be 100. So now we have kind of a little HUD to tell us what our armor and health is at. And we'll make sure that the only variables are the health value, the armor value, and the weapon. I believe we also have the crosshair as a variable. We don't really need that to be a variable, so you can uncheck that too. So now we have the variables over here in the graph. So let's fill out a little bit of this information. And really, all we're going to be doing is removing this stuff, and we're just going to create a custom event called set flash color. And that's going to take in an input of a linear color, and we'll call that color. But it's also going to take in a float that we're going to call alpha. And we can split this color, this linear color struct, because we'll need all of this. So before we can really do anything here, we also need to add an image to the overlay, and it can be above the vertical box. And this will be stretched across the entire thing. And we'll call this damage. And we can also change the opacity to be 0, because this will just flash whenever we get damaged. And that should be a variable, and it is. And now we can bring in that damage. And from that, we will set the color and opacity. And we'll split that in color and opacity. And all we're going to do is hook up the red to the red, green to the green, blue to the blue, skip the alpha, and instead use this alpha down here to be the opacity. So you can close that. And then we're going to head over to the player. So in here, I want to do just a couple things. The first thing we're going to do is create a function called update health in Armor UI. And what this is going to do is just change or update any information that the UI needs in order to show the correct amount of armor and health that the player has. So what we'll want to do is drag in that ability system component, and we're going to get the floats for both the armor and the health. So the top one I'll say is health, the bottom one I'll say is armor. And then we need a reference to our HUD. So up here in the event graph, we create our HUD widget right here, and we add it to the viewport. But we can actually store this by right-clicking this and just say promote to a variable. And we'll call that HUD. And then we'll just pass this through this section here. And now that we have the HUD, we can go back to the update health and armor UI, and we'll take that HUD out. And we'll need to get the health value and the armor value. So essentially, we're just setting the text for these widgets one after another. And the health value is our health, so the return value can go right in here, and it will convert it to text. And the same thing for the armor. So with that done, right out of the gate up here after we equip the weapon, we can add a little delay, and it can be 0, the duration will be 0, and then we can update the health and armor. So now when we start the game, it should show us whatever our health and armor is. So now 20 armor and 100 health, so that's working. Now we just need to update it whenever we take damage. So let's go ahead and now override our take damage event. And if you right click it, we can also do a call to the parent function just in case anything happens. We don't want to forget. And then after that, we're going to update the health and armor UI. And this will happen when the character takes damage. And then we want to actually animate that damage image on our HUD. So let's create a timeline to do that. And it will play from the start, and we can rename this to something like damage flash. And what's cool about this is that we can use this damage image on the HUD to flash any color we want. So for instance, if you're picking up items, maybe it'll flash blue. If you're getting damaged, maybe it'll flash red. If you're getting poisoned, it could flash red or green or whatever you want. So really you can do a lot with this. So in order for this to work, we'll need to open this up. We'll set the length to something like 0.5, something quick. And then we'll add a float value or a float track. And right at the beginning, we'll just say that we'll add a key and we'll say that the time is 0, but the value will be 0.25, so it's not too strong. And then we'll add another key here at the end, make sure that the time is equal to 0.5, which is the length, and we'll say the value is 0. And if you compile and save, we can head back over to the event graph. Oh, we didn't name it, so let's name that up here. We can right click and hit rename, and we'll say that that's alpha. Save that back in the event graph. Now we have that alpha, so we need to run that function that's on the HUD, and that is called set flash color. So on update, that's where that's going to be, because every tick it's going to set this. And for the color, we can just choose whatever we want for damage. So we're going to choose a red color. And I think that's all we need to do. So let's go ahead and see if that works. Save from shoot me. Oh, look at that. My UI has updated. There's a red flash. It shows me I'm getting damage. Once it goes below the armor threshold, it should start hitting health. And it is. So everything is working well. We have a visual representation of taking damage. And now we can move on to figuring out how we can gain armor and health through pickups. Let's start by creating a new folder that we'll call pickups. And then we can head over to the weapons folder, and we're just going to take that weapon pickup and we're going to move it back to this folder we just created. And then we can duplicate this, and we'll call this BP pickup. And this will be the one that we derive weapon pickup and then any sort of armor or health pickup from. Now let's open it up. And we don't need the begin overlap section, but the tick where we have the actual flip book always facing the camera, we can keep that because every pickup will have this. We can actually rename weapon. We'll just call it item. And then down here in the weapon pickup, weapon to acquire, we can delete this. And then while we're at it, we can set the scale of the item back down to 1, and it was 2 for the gun sprite. So then if we compile and save that, we can open up the weapon pickup. And we don't need the tick section because that's in the BP pickup, so we can delete that. However, we also want to make sure in the class settings that the parent class is the pickup blueprint. And then it inherits all of the things that were in the parent, and we don't need the weapon, so we can delete that. And we also don't need the pickup radius because both the item and the pickup radius are inherited. And then while we're at it, we can set the scale back to 2 because that's what the gun needs. So if we compile and save, we can just test that out to make sure the gun is still being picked up and working. So it is. Now we're going to right-click the BP pickup and we'll create a child blueprint. And we'll call this BP underscore stat pickup. And then, before we mess around with that, let's head over to the textures, the UI, and then both of these sprites need to be made into flipbooks. So we'll just right-click, create a flipbook, and I'll call this FB underscore health pickup. And then for the armor, same thing, we'll create a flipbook, FB underscore armor pickup. And then I'll move both of these to the flipbooks folder. And in here, we can just say new folder, pickups. And then we can add all of these pickups into this folder here. The next thing I'm going to do is head over to the blueprints folder, and we're going to create a new folder in here called enums. And then we're going to add the enemy facing enumeration into there, and we'll open up this folder. And now we're going to add two more. So in the blueprint section, we add the enumeration, and I'll call this enum underscore pickup type, and then another one, blueprints enumeration enum underscore pickup size. And for the type, if you open that up, we'll just add two entries. First one being armor, the second one being health. You can save that and close it. That's all there is in there. And then for the pickup size, again, just two. And we'll do small and large. Cool. Now we can head over to the stat pickup that we have, and we'll mess around with some things in here. For the event graph, we're not really going to do anything in there. We're just going to create a few functions. First one will be set stat flipbook, or set stat pickup flipbook. And then we want to create a variable called pickup type of the type enum pickup type. We'll create another one called pickup size of the type enum pickup size. And then we'll just drag out this type. Well, make sure you compile. And then from the pickup type, we'll do a switch on enumeration pickup type. So now it will decide what is happening based on what the pickup type variable is. So what we'll be changing is the item flipbook that's visible. So we would just say set the flipbook, and you can copy and paste that because it's going to do the same on each side. It's just changing which of these flipbooks we're using. So if it is armor, we're using the armor one, and if it's health, we're using the health one. And the next thing we want to do is see what size these should be. So we're going to do another one of these switches, but this time on the pickup size. And we're going to do that on each of these. So just duplicate it and put it down here too. And then what we're changing is the scale of the item. So you drag the item in, and then we'll set relative scale 3D. And we're just going to be doing this 4 times. It's pretty simple. And the item is the target for each of these. And then if it's large, we do 2. And if it's small, we do 1. So that's really all we're doing, and this will be fired in the construction script. So right after the parent function, we just set the stat pickup flipbook. And so we can actually test this out by dragging in a stat pickup, and then you can see that it defaults to the armor. And if we were to make the type and size visible, then we can say that it is a large armor. It'll change. We can say it's health, and it would change and change the size, and it adjusts on the fly, which is pretty cool. Back in the BP stat pickup, I'm going to take this pickup type and I'm going to take the eyeball off. But the eyeball will be on for pickup size because that will be changed in the details panel. I'm going to also add one other variable, and I'm going to call this pickup tag. And I'm going to change its type to be a gameplay tag container. And the purpose of this is to say what ability will be fired depending on the size and type of this pickup. And we'll create those abilities here in a second, but first what I want to do is set these pickup tags based on the result of the item that we are choosing. So first I'm just going to copy and paste these right here, right after each of these relative scale nodes. So I'm just going to create a tag for all of these. So the top one here is the small armor. So I'm going to type in for a new gameplay tag, pickup.armor.small, and I'll add that new tag. And for the next one, I'll do a new tag again, and I'll say pickup.armor.large. And then for the third one, this is the small health, I'll add a new gameplay tag, pickup.health.small. And then for the final one, I'll add a new gameplay tag again, and we'll say pickup.health.large. So if we compile and save that, we can create the next function that we'll be using. And this one will be called full health check. Now, the purpose of this will be to see whether or not we should pick up a health pickup based on what the health of the character is. So if the character has max health, we shouldn't be picking up any health. So really all that we're going to do is we'll pass in a variable for the ability system, and the type will be the ability system component. And then what we'll want to do is get the float attribute, and we'll select health. And then we just want to check if it's equal to 100. And then we'll branch from that. And then what we'll be doing is adding another tag to the pickup tag, which we have already determined in the set stat pickup flipbook. And this will set this to the size and the type, but this will add a tag or remove a tag that tells us if the character's health is full. So we'll just create a new gameplay tag, and we'll say player.health.full. And then we'll add that tag. If the return value of the health is equal to 100, then we're going to say the health's full. And if it's not, we're going to remove this tag. So essentially what this is going to do is pass the pickup tag to the ability of whatever healing we have based on what size of the health pickup we're getting. And if it is passing in a player.health.full, we're going to block it so that it actually does not fire. And then it will check and see if it does not have this. If it doesn't, then it actually will fire and we will pick up the pickup. And you'll see it in action here in a bit. So while we have this done, what we can do is just duplicate the full health check, and we'll call it full armor check. And then really it's just a matter of swapping a few things, like the armor should be the attribute we're looking for. We'll keep it at 100. And then instead of player.health.full, we want to create a new one called player.armor.full. And then we'll swap this tag down here to not be the health.full, instead the armor.full. All right, and that's going to do it for the stat pickup. And now we want to derive specifically the armor pickup and the health pickup from this. So we'll close this, and we'll close the weapon pickup and the BP pickup. So we really want to go to the stat pickup here and create a child blueprint class, and we'll call that BP underscore health pickup. And then we can create another one while we're at it. Remember, we're creating a child of the stat pickup. We'll call that BP underscore armor pickup. Now before we fill out what those do, let's go to the player and we'll create a function that will flash the screen to show that we've picked something up. So we'll just do a custom event. We'll call it item pickup. And really all we're doing is copying all of this stuff and just doing the same thing. It's just we're going to change the color of the flash to be equal to something like blue. And then if we want, we could rename this timeline to be pickup flash. And we can compile and save that. And now let's open up our pickups. So I'll open up the armor pickup and the health pickup. And so for the armor pickup, we'll go to the event graph and we can delete the tick and delete the begin play, but we will use the actor begin overlap. And the first thing we'll do is cast to the FPS player, because this will only work when the player walks over it. And then we'll get the ability system. And from that, we will do the, since this is the armor, we'll do full armor check. And then from the ability system component, we will try to activate abilities by tag. Now turn off remote activation, and the actual gameplay tag container will be the pickup tag. So now it's going to look for abilities that have the tag that we have assigned in the pickup. And then we want to branch from this return value. And only if it's true will we take this FPS player and run the item pickup function we made, or the event. Can kind of just organize this a bit. And then we will destroy the actor. So only if we do activate the ability using the pickup tag will we actually pick up the item and destroy the actor. So basically, if we have full health, this won't work. And then we can copy all of this and head over to the health pickup, because we're doing the exact same thing. It's just that instead of the armor check, we're doing the full health check. And remember to hook up the ability system. And now we can actually fill out what the abilities are that give us health or armor. So why don't we go ahead and drag these out? So we can drag out the armor pickups. And I'm going to change this one after selecting it. I'm going to say that it's large. And one thing I forgot is that in the health pickup, we want to change, in the class defaults, the pickup type. We want to change that to health. And then we can compile and save that. And then back in the map, now we can drag the health pickup out. And you can see it is now the health. And we'll just copy paste, and we'll just do 3 of them here. And I'll just change this middle one to a large. So now we have the actual pickups in the map. However, they're not doing anything, because if you run over them, they're not firing any ability, because there's no ability on the player with the tags that these have. So we'll just need to head over to the abilities, and we'll create a folder in here, and we'll call this pickup abilities. No spaces. And in here, we'll just create a gameplay ability. Just a standard gameplay ability. And we'll call this GA underscore health pickup small. And then we can create another blueprint class of the type gameplay effect. We'll call that GE health pickup small effect. So now we have one for the small health pickups. So let's fill out what the effect is. So it'll be instant, and then we'll just say that it adds 3. And we'll make sure that the attribute is health. Compile and save that. And then if we open the gameplay ability, and in here on event activate ability, we want to commit the ability. And then we will apply gameplay effect to owner. And the specific gameplay effect we're doing is the health pickup small effect. And then if you select class defaults, we need to add the actual pickup tag. So pickup health small. And then the activation blocked tags is player health full. So now if the tags that are passed in has player.health.full, this will not fire, it will be blocked. Otherwise, if this tag matches the tag that's being passed in, it will grant this effect, which increases the player's health by 3. But in order for this to work, we need to head over to the player and actually add this ability in the default abilities. So we already have that pistol ability in here. Why don't we just add one more and say that it is the health pickup small. And now if we actually compile and save, and we make sure that we head over to the player and change his starting stats so that he does not have max health, we'll say that it has 90 health. And then why don't we go ahead and delete this pistol enemy just so he doesn't affect us at all. And so we can test this out and see when we run over the small health if it does indeed actually heal the player for 3. So he's got 90 health, and if we run over this small one, it healed us for 3, it even flashed blue, and the pickup was destroyed, exactly what we're looking for. However, now we need to do the abilities for the remaining 3 pickups, and that would be the large health, large armor, and small armor. For the large armor and large health, I'm going to do 8, and for the smalls, I'm going to do 3. But I'm going to challenge you to create the other 3 on your own. And don't forget, in order for them to work, they need to be in the default ability list on the player. Alright, so now that you've created the effects and they are working, you've probably tested it out, let's go ahead and see what happens. So I made the health of the character equal to 96, and I made the armor of the character 96 also, so that we can max out our armor and health and see if the pickups go away after we have max health. So pick up this small armor, it goes to 99. I'll pick up the large one, it goes to 100. And then if I run over the small one, it doesn't work. So that's working as intended. So if I grab the big health here, it's now maxed out, and I'll walk over the small ones, and nothing happens. And that's good. However, let's see what happens if we have max health and an enemy shoots us. So I'm just going to go over to the enemies folder, and I'm going to drag in the pistol enemy. Just right here will be fine. Alright, we're going to test it out with the enemy. And so if I grab as much armor and health as I can, I'm now maxed out, and then if he shoots me, it should take my armor down. So let's see what happens. Alright, now you see that my armor is actually at 100. That's because the armor I have actually exceeds 100, and you see that he hit me for 99 now. So what's happening here is that when I have 96 armor and I pick up this small one, which is 3, it goes to 99 armor. And then I pick up this large one, that's 8, and instead of going just to 100, it now goes to 107 armor, it just only shows 100. And then his damage, the enemy's damage, is 4, so if I have 107 armor, he hits me once, it goes down to 103, and if he hits me again, it goes down to 99. So we have to figure out how to make it so that no matter how much armor you pick up, it never exceeds 100. Alright, so what I did was I closed Unreal and I went back to the retro FPS attribute set.cpp file because I'm just going to add a little bit of code in this pre-gameplay effect execute. And the first thing I want to do is determine whether or not the effect is adding health or armor. And so I kind of do that test here at the end in this if statement. I see if the data.evaluatedData.magnitude is less than 0, in which case I know that damage is being given. So I want to do a check to see if health or armor is being given, so the opposite of that. And I think what I'm going to do is actually cut that part out, and then right above it, I'll say if, and then I'll paste it in here, but I'm going to switch it to be greater than 0. And then I'm going to add the brackets, and then right under it, I'm going to say else, and then add the brackets again, but I'm going to make sure that this if statement here is encompassed by these brackets. So essentially I'm saying, okay, what happens if we are gaining health or gaining armor? Otherwise, we're not gaining, we are removing. So then now I can check if we're removing armor and if the armor damage is greater than the armor that the character has, and then do the health stuff. But up here, I'm going to check to see if the data.evaluatedData.attribute is equal to getArmor attribute and getArmor, so the amount of armor that the character has, plus this armor damage, which I'm going to actually rename to absolute magnitude. And then I'm going to make sure that that is placed here where armor damage used to be, and here. And so basically now I'm saying, okay, is the attribute armor, and also is the current armor plus the magnitude of the effect, so however much armor is being given, is that greater than or equal to 100? Because if it is, I want to do two things. One, I want to set armor to be equal to 100, so max armor, and we're not going above 100. And then I want to return false. And that's because I don't want the rest of this stuff to happen. I'm going to specifically say what's happening. We're setting the armor to 100, and then we're out of here. We're done. The effect has been complete. And so now I want to copy this and do the same thing for health. So just under it here, I'll just paste, and instead of get armor attribute, we'll do get health attribute. And then get armor, it should be get health. And otherwise it all works except for we're setting the health to be 100. So we're just doing a check to see if we are exceeding the max health or max armor, and if we are, set the health and armor to max, and then get the hell out of here. Otherwise, if these aren't the case, we just move on and we return true. And that's really all we need to do to make sure we don't go above 100. So let's save it and test it out. All right, now that we are back in the editor, let's hit play and see if this is fixed. I'm going to grab all the health and armor I can get. And now, remember, one more hit, it should bring my health down or my armor down below 100. There you go. It's now maxed out at 100, and then if I grab this, it should go up 3. And he'll hit me again. Everything is working well. And I think that's going to do it for this video. So thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. And please subscribe and like the video and all that jazz. And I will see you in the next installment of the Retro FPS tutorial series.